One of the things I'm really interested in is the Me Too movement, and I'm interested in how the Me Too movement is written about. And that's partly because people started associating Me Too with Hollywood and very attractive Hollywood actresses, most of whom who were white, and people would say, you know, oh, look at Charlize Theron. And a lot of people didn't realize that it was a black woman more than 10 years ago that started saying Me Too, just that language. But the role that women of color have had with really taking sexism head on in all kinds of ways, not just the private sphere, the domestic sphere.
Take it back to Anita Hill?
Yeah, and so I love teaching about the Anita Hill Clarence Thomas hearings, partly because it's so humbling. Students now, it happened 8 years before they were born, right? And I remember when it was, you know, current affairs. And to explain that the Senate then had 98 men in it, and you couldn't even put it on partisan politics because it was led by Biden.
Right.
And that no one believed her, even black people didn't believe her, and what it meant to be silent, and what it meant for a coalition of women to come together across race, to have this public dialogue between black women and white women, and how white women saw it very differently than black women. That really excites me. Being able to know that I lived through that myself. That happened my first year of graduate school. It was a really big deal for me because I watched it unfold. And to be able to translate that to a younger generation.
So these issues of race and gender and how they intersect and interweave it's complicated.
It's very complicated.
How do you negotiate that? How do you think about it?
It's really complicated because if we go back to Anita Hill, for instance, people think, oh, well, she was probably a black feminist. She actually identified at the time as a conservative Christian from Oklahoma, who came from a large family. She said that she came to the Senate hearings with nothing but a Bible in her purse and, like, you know, a hope and a prayer. And she wouldn't have identified with someone like Kimberly Crenshaw, who writes about intersectionality in 1993, like 2 years later. And so ideology matters, right? That people want to compare, you know, Condoleezza Rice to Susan Rice, and they're very different people. And socioeconomic status matters, right? People from privileged backgrounds see it differently than working class people do sometimes. And so that's why I think it's super nuanced that when I talk about feminisms of color, that it's different being a nanny, it's different being able to afford a nanny.